Brownsville, Tennessee. Gary Grant, Tom Burrell, Dexter Davis. It was just a bunch of us, and we decided that we was going to stay there, and that was just right after George Bush had got probably elected. And they had told us that they was finna bring in the stormtroopers, the federal marshals. They was going to do all this stuff they was gonna do. And it was over the 4th of July weekend. But the threats was there, but nobody wanted to do anything about us. And I think after a while, I don't forget how many days we stayed in there. You know, it wasn't no real long, maybe a week or two. But I don't remember, but it was such a long time ago. But we was from Louisiana, North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Tennessee. We had a group of farmers from all over the countries, we did, yeah. And that was the time when we were strong. Our monies and our finances was better before this economic terrorism took place of us. Our demands was, the main thing was them to allow us to go to court. The other demand was we wanted to get rid of the county committee. I think I might even have a list of all those demands back in there. I remember looking over a document the other day and saw us in it. But demand was mainly about justice, about being fair with us, you know, equality, you know, the things that we was fighting about all the time. We had so many rallies. We had so many arrests. I don't know which one is what. I know that one day that we had got into USDA and we wouldn't allow them to close the doors. And so slowly they got, and it was amazing. I had no idea that Washington, D.C. had an all-black police department. And all of these black marshals or sheriffs, anyway, all of us black. And they came and took us off to jail, and we was protesting, demanding that we be heard. And we was demanding to see, at that time, I think the Secretary of Agriculture might have been Dan Glickman or Mike Shohan, I'm not quite sure. So we was arrested that time. We protested in Lafayette Park across from the White House. And I remember one time we brought in a lot, I think we had maybe about 13 different buses from across the country, from Oklahoma, Arkansas, from Georgia, Alabama, it was all over the country. There was a case of a gentleman by the name of Harry Young from Owensboro, Kentucky, right? This gentleman had 300 acres of land. He had $750 million worth of coal and oil reserves on his land, right? They took his land by illegal means. And after they took his land, this brother was 83 years old. Then they took him and brought him to court to send him to prison for threatening a USDA official. And that was the only time that we was able to get into court. And what he did, he produced a receipt to show that he had done paid his farm off. And they explained, well, we put it in an escrow account and did something with this. Well, you don't need no escrow account. This is the amount what is owed, and he paid it off. When they finally said, yeah, this was a great tragedy and an injustice, they drug around in court, and guess what? He died. And you can't, his sons and daughters don't want to have nothing to do with it because them good old boys up in that part of the country, and don't get me wrong, Kentucky just was outright racist with it. I know Miss Maddie Mack, strong black woman, I mean, and beautiful, you know. And for her to stand up to him, and I know she would, because I have been on many places with her, many campaigns with her. And when those kind of people die, like Harry Young, when people like Miss Maddie Mack has passed, and you know they was in debt, and you know they was USDA, I mean, my heart, I be want to cry. You know, I be want to cry. And I want to cry because of Miss Maddie Mack, because I had stopped calling her because I couldn't stand it no more, you know. I mean, this black woman was 86 years old. She had a brain tumor, and she would be crying about, we gotta solve this before I die. I can't leave my family in this. They're gonna take my farm, my land, my house, my home, everything, you know? So there was a lot of cases like that over in Michael Stovall over in Alabama. The USDA official went out there and helped poison a herd of his cows. It was documented in the DJ Miller report, that when they hired them to investigate all this discrimination back in 1998, 99, yeah. So those things are real. Who you think running these county committees all over the place? We call them good old boys, but what's the difference in the Klan and the good old boys and the White Citizens Council and the Night Riders? Same people, just different names. They're the same people. Over here, in Hawkins, in Marshallville, Georgia, a gentleman he's gone on now, he's transitioned. His name was William Miller, good friend of mine. He had 1,300 acres of land. And so what they did, they went and borrowed a loan for $770,000. Now they didn't record it in Macon County where he lived. They recorded in Dooley County, in the adjacent county, thought that he would never discover it, right? So then they went to foreclose to take the 1,300 acres of land. And finally, because his mother lost him, he came up with the monies and everything, because it was a guaranteed loan with the land bank, right? When we gave it and got exposed to the fact that that's $770,000 that they got him, where is, if you'd have had to go in and do discovery, where is the farm and home plan that would told you what he had put up for that $770,000? What is he was going to produce, how he was going to produce his crop, what kind of amount of cattle he was going to drive, what he was going to do. And know what? They couldn't do that because they know it was a fraud. He's the only black man I know got his land back, because when we exposed that one, that had some of the guys that were still working for USDA on the route. And he did. They, along with Sackville Chambliss, USDA Office of General Counsel, a gentleman by the name of J. Michael Kelly, headed the General Counsel. We was in Washington, D.C. and told him about how they fraudulently put this lien against William Miller. He said, sound like y'all need to get a lawyer. I mean, you are a lawyer. You working for USDA, we telling you how they defraud money from the farmers. But that is the attitude that anytime they do something, it was all right with these good old boys. And that's the reason why it's so easy to be called institutionalized racism, because the local, the state, and the federal all endorse the same injustice. And we created what was called the Black Farmers and Agriculturalists Association. And we was pretty active in about 21 states. And back in those days, we was pretty strong. So a lot of things that we was petitioning for and fighting for, you know, we got a lot of ground. We went and we knew farmers all over the country. You know, back in that day, we knew them in California and New York, and I think those generations may have died off because there wasn't a lot of them. And the lawsuit, we thought that we was gonna receive justice, you know, but we didn't know. Here's the worst thing about it. The black farmers did not see a final draft of the consent decree until after they had done signed it and put it into law. And what black farmer in his right mind would sign a document saying, I'm gonna go through this kangaroo court, and after I get through, I ain't got no appeal courts, I ain't got no appeal rights or nothing. No black farmer would sign that. You know, what black farmer in his right mind would allow all of these little things in there? They had something called a similarly situated white farmer. Okay, if they had done discovery, all those records are in USDA. And because you can know that class counsel never represented the black farmer, Alexander Pyries, Phil Frost, and all of those attorneys, they never represented the black farmers. Those people were more our enemies than anybody else. But in the courts, they signed them as class counsel, but they never represented the class. When we wanted a discovery in this case, it was Alexander Pyries said, no, we don't need discovery. 2 or 3 different times we tried to get Alexander Pyries and those lawyers fired or dismissed from the case. And we couldn't, because Al Pyries made it very plain, I ain't took 1 penny from the black farmer. So he kind of let you know then that he never represented us, and he never did. Only in court on paper. He never represented us. When you look at the 5th Amendment to the Constitution that guarantees us due process, that means that you can go into court and you can present your side and the evidence, and on the merits you can present your case to them. But what it looks like for us, because I don't know anyone that has been able to go into court, it reminds me of 1857 in the Dred Scott decision, when the United States Supreme Court, and the Chief Justice at that time was a Roger B. Taney, said that the Negro had no right that the white man was bound to respect. He was nothing more than an ordinary article of merchandise, as a hog, a cow, or a chicken. And wherever commerce was concerned or profit to be made by it, so be it. He was nothing more than an ordinary article of merchandise. So obviously 1857 still applied to us, even going into the 21st century, because out of all of these black farmers that we had, I don't know one that have been able to be heard in court, his case on the merits. That's Lucius Abrams, Cecil Brewington, and any of the lead plaintiffs, And for them to say that we have justice, that's a moral disgrace. Ain't no justice in America. Equal justice under the law still do not exist in America for the black and the poor. And the black farmers lawsuit bears this out. It bears it out. There was a gentleman by the name of Vernon Breckinridge. He was from Hennessy, Oklahoma. And so when the agricultural economist, he was a track B case in the Pigford case. And when they got through with the agricultural economist and said that his actual damages was $2.2 million. And so when that came up, they went through the process. They said, no, we're not going to do it. They resent the whole thing and they would do it. So he had right at 2,000 acres of land. And because of not being able to receive the justice in Pigford, in order to save himself, he sold off 1,000 acres of his land just to be able to save himself. The same thing that happened to some people in Arkansas. And a lot of us had to sell off land to keep us on the farm, on the land, to keep the land. And what is so tragic that when you look at these 80 and 90-year-old black men and women having to fight these kind of fights, it's unimaginable. But I remember his case because I went out to Hennessy, Oklahoma and interviewed him about that. And another case that's very good to that was Joe and Evelyn Bryant in Arkansas. They had big holdings. They used to be rice farmers. I'm talking about thousands of acres. And when they went through it, and it came out that it was a huge amount of money. And so when they reran it and rebudgeted on re-examination, however the process goes, nobody understood the process but USDA and the class council, the arbitrator, the adjudicator, the facilitator, the alligator, and all the rest of them. They would just pile up 7 tiers. Only thing that we know is that black farmers, Evelyn and Joe Bryant, and Joe was in bad shape now, he done had a stroke. They had to sell off a large portion of their land to salvage themselves and keep themselves afloat after they went through Pigford. Any actual farmer that owned that land that went through Pigford, he's worse off now than he was before the lawsuit. And that's a fact. It is called economic terrorism. And economic terrorism, what they do is, just like they do to Taliban and Al-Qaeda, they cut off all their finances. That's what they do to us. So now they say, okay, you're delinquent, so we can't loan you no more money. And matter of fact, we're gonna start offsetting you when you can't pay all your bills, and your credit gonna be bad, and ain't nobody else gonna loan you no money. And and they do it. And every time you turn around, and I can go in the house right now and show you, all the loans I get is 31% interest, and all this kind of stuff interest, because they did that to us. If you gave me $50,000 and over 9 years you took $50,000 from me, where did I gain anything? If you say that I won my land back, but you say you still owe this debt over here and it ain't against your land, but I ain't gonna stamp satisfied and counsel in the courthouse where you can use your land and go back to farming. This was an American tragedy. And so many elderly black men and women suffered because of our inability. No other group in America would have faced such an onslaught and got away with it except with black farmers, with black America. It's a moral disgrace.